Hello, everybody. I am Candace, the owner of Chubby & Coo's Mid-City Bookshop, coming at you live from the bookstore. And I am super excited for this really fun Valentine's Day event. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. And this event is all about YA romance. And we have an amazing panel of authors. And I'm really excited to do these shenanigans with all of you. So welcome. We have our safer space policy that is posted in the chat. Just a reminder, we have zero tolerance for harassment or intimidation or anything like that. And we reserve the right to boot you out if there's a problem. So take a look at that. Hopefully there isn't a problem, but if there is, we will kick you out. And if you haven't already, you can buy books. You can click the button down there at the bottom of your screen that says buy books, and you can buy any of these authors' books from us. And if you have a question for the authors at any point during the event, you can use that ask a question function as well. And we may incorporate it into the discussion and answer it. So today I am so excited to have a whole bunch of authors, and I'm going to introduce them in alphabetical order because that's the easiest way to go. So first I have A.L. Grazadeh, who was born in Buffalo, New York, and raised on Sabres hockey and video games, using their free time to write books inspired by both. Now living in Wisconsin, A.L. still plays plenty of video games, which I really appreciate because I'm also a video gamer, and is a proud member of the Displaced Buffalo Sabres fans group. Their book Icebreaker is the first book, so the debut, hooray, congratulations. We also have Anna Marie McLemore, who writes magical realism and fairy tales that are queer, Latin, and non-binary, and I love them so much. Their books include 2017 Stonewall Honor Book, When the Moon Was Ours, which was also longlisted for the National Book Award in Young People's Literature, and it won the James Tiptree Jr. Award as well. Anna Marie has a lot of other books, but their forthcoming book is called Lake Lore, and also another book coming out later this year called Self-Made Boys, which is a Great Gatsby remix, and I'm super excited about it. We have, of course, Marissa Meyer, who is the #1 New York Times bestselling author of the Renegades trilogy, the Lunar Chronicles, the Wires and Nerve graphic novels. I think there's a Lunar Chronicles coloring book, all kinds of things. Her first standalone novel, Heartless, was also a #1 New York Times bestseller. Marissa created and hosts a podcast called The Happy Writer, and she lives in Tacoma, Washington with her husband and their 2 daughters. And I'm just going to do a shout out for Instant Karma as well, which is another really cute romance. We also have Caleb Roerig, who is a writer and television producer, originally from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Having lived in Chicago, Los Angeles, Helsinki, Finland, all over the world, he has a chronic case of wanderlust. He is also a former actor, which I think is really interesting, with a resume that includes appearances on film and TV. And also, in the name of earning a paycheck, he has hung around a frozen cornfield in his underwear, partied with an actual rock star, chatted with a scandal-plagued politician, and been menaced by a disgruntled ostrich. So that is a really interesting bio. And finally, we have Sarah Winifred Searle, who originally hails from spooky New England, but currently lives in Perth, Australia with their beloved spouse and cat, and is known for vulnerable memoir and compassionate fiction in comic and graphic novel form, including Sincerely Harriet, Patience and Esther, Who Was the Girl Warrior of France, Joan of Arc, and The Greatest Thing, which is the newest one. And you can keep up with all of these authors' work on social media and websites. And I know that y'all know who most of these folks are, so I'm going to go ahead and bring them on screen. Welcome to all of you. I am so excited to be here today and to do shenanigans. So let us start by doing a collective romance story before we start like talking about things, so that hopefully the audience will keep this going as we talk. The idea is we are going to write a collective, very short romance story. And the general theme is that this is a meet cute in a bookstore. And the trope we're going for is grumpy sunshine. So to start us off, each author is going to give us one sentence of the story that I'll type into the chat. And then after that first paragraph, it will be up to you in the audience to keep it going. I want y'all to type, each type of sentence and keep it going. And then at the end of the event, we'll read it out loud and see what kind of a flash fiction story we have. So Anna Marie has graciously agreed to kick us off here. So throw it at us, Anna Marie. What do you got?
I love this trope. It was, am I echoing? I'm sorry.
Nope, I don't hear.
Am I doing okay? Okay, it's just me. Let's go with, it was a perfect afternoon in my favorite bookstore until my least favorite person walked in.
Okay, I'm gonna finish typing. Until my least favorite person walked in. Okay, does anyone have a second sentence? It does not have to be great literature.
He looked at me and immediately got a dark scowl on his face.
Whoever thought that Mr. Darcy was attractive for being grumpy was entirely wrong.
Imagine if a dark cloud had biceps, and that's the vibe.
The fact that he wore all black and eyeliner just added to it.
I feel like we have got a great character description to start with.
Oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I think that was everyone, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay.
There's a lot of smoldering hotness happening in this grumpy facade.
Yes. So there's our first paragraph, audience. It was a perfect afternoon in my favorite bookstore until my least favorite person walked in. He looked at me and immediately got a dark scowl on his face. Whoever thought that Mr. Darcy was attractive for being grumpy was entirely wrong. Imagine if a dark cloud had biceps, and that's the vibe. The fact that he wore all black and eyeliner just added to it. And now it's up to you to type in sentence by sentence and keep it going. And then at the end of the event, we'll read our story and see what we have. So thank you.
Please let there be kissing by the end of it.
Oh my gosh, please put in there, y'all. Come on.
Do this, audience.
Y'all get, there's enough people here that y'all could keep this going. Don't be shy. Just let's do this. Okay, so thank y'all for indulging this romance game night theme here. And so I want to talk to y'all about your new projects, because I think all of you have Serendipity, which I have right here. Oops. I think most of you are actually in this book. But there's also, I know all of you have other books as well that are coming out soon. So I would like to hear from all of you about what, first of all, Marissa, if you want to tell us about Serendipity, since you edited that, and then you can all tell us about what projects you're working on.
Yes, thank you. I am so thrilled to talk about Serendipity. It is my first time editing a collection of short stories. So there is 10 stories in the collection. Every one of them is inspired by a different beloved romantic trope. Grumpy Sunshine is not one of them, but now I'm regretting that and really bummed about it. But there's the best friend love epiphany, the makeover, the secret admirer, only one bed, lots of our beloved favorites. And Caleb and Anna Marie and Sarah are 3 of my fantastic contributors. And it was just like super fun to write. The collection as a whole, it's romantic, it's uplifting, it's cheerful. And I just had so much fun editing it and working with such amazing authors.
It is a really fun anthology for sure. And I love all of the different, there's so many different takes on the tropes in the anthology, which is the point of it. And so each story takes on like a different trope. And what I very much appreciated is that all the tropes are just right here on the back of the book. Like, here's a list of tropes. And it's like, oh yes, fake relationship, check. Stranded together, check. One bed, check. So it's like all these things. So if you like tropes, you can just look right there on the back of the book, and they are all listed. So I very much appreciated that.
Yeah, it was so fun. It was so great for me to like have the authors come in and say like, I want to do this trope as they were picking them, and then everyone went off for 3-4 months, and then suddenly these stories started popping up in my inbox, and they were just like, everyone was like a little treat.
I bet it was really fun. And for those of you who have stories in the book, what was it like working on an anthology? And I know Sarah's is a like mini comic, which was really cool. And then the rest are short stories. So why don't you tell us about y'all's experience too with the anthology in general and the stories you wrote?
Well, it was interesting working on a comic for an all prose anthology. That was the first time I'd done that. So we had some kind of interesting things to consider, like, I don't know, how it would fit in with the rest of the book. But I was really pleased with how it turned out. I think it's good. I hope.
I really like writing for anthologies, but it's a totally different kind of skill set than writing like a full length story. And I tend to be very verbose when I write. So I wrote a really, really long short story and then had to like cut it in half. But it's fun. It's like, it forces you to think about exactly what matters to the story. If you're writing a love story, you've got to figure out how to get those two people. If that's your objective, you got to get those two people to kiss by the end of it.
And that should be your objective, right? Or at least hold hands or some moment.
I love that as the mission of these particular short stories. I really enjoyed doing kind of whatever I wanted to do with my particular trope, which was the makeover trope, which ended up being sort of like the simultaneous makeover and make under trope, because it's a lot about makeup, and it's about like wearing the amount of makeup you want to wear and presenting yourself in a way that makes you feel good in the world. And I loved having that alongside just like the squishy like feelings of romance. It was so much fun to write for this anthology.
Awesome. And AL, you have an entirely new project as well called Icebreaker, right? Do you want to tell us about this novel? It's coming out next month, I believe. Is that correct?
It came out last month.
Oh, it came out last
Yeah.
month. I'm so sorry. I thought it was coming out in March. Okay, tell us about it.
Icebreaker is a rivals to lovers hockey romance about the NHL's top 2 draft prospects on the same college team. So they're battling for the top draft prospect or top draft spot, but they also are really attracted to each other. So, and it also deals with a little bit of mental health and family stuff,
as I feel is necessary for these things to deal with other things in the midst of the romance, right? Yeah. So tell me why you all choose to write YA number 1 and romance number 2. What about writing YA romance appeals to you, or just about writing YA?
I always, when I get asked that question, my answer is always, I certainly could not have written what I write for adults and had the same reception. At least not when I first started writing young adult. Because I write stories about queer kids who get to be like the heroes of mysteries and thrillers and horror novels. And that's just not books like that are so pigeonholed in adult fiction, or have been historically so pigeonholed. And I find that young adult readers are so much more open-minded. They are more open to genre blending. They're more open to experimental takes and fresh perspectives. They like seeing new takes and new characters doing all these things. And so, but personally, I really love that. And writing love stories, it's like there's something very curative about it for me, because I spent a lot of my youth sort of suppressing that part of myself. So I get to really I get to write about kids who have things the way that I wish I'd had it, I guess.
Yeah, similarly, I think I write young adult, especially like from the point of view of boys, because I'm non-binary, and I, grew up, just living life as a girl, and being able to write from the point of view of like teenage boys kind of gives me that teenage boyhood that I missed out on. So I think that's what really drew me to YA.
I'll go off of what Caleb was saying about the open-mindedness. I think that's something that means a lot to me writing in this space, both talking about YA and talking about romance, because these are both spaces where there's an openness to happy endings, if that is right for your story. There are certain literary spaces where there is cynicism about happy endings. And writing about the characters I write about, writing about trans and non-binary characters, queer characters, characters of color, characters who are from the communities that I'm from, having that sort of like allowance to be able to give them the ending that is right for them and that is right for the story. Writing happy endings for these characters is really important to me, because I think we need to know that that's possible. I certainly needed to know that that's possible growing up. So being in spaces where we write the endings that are right for our stories, whatever that is, that's something that I'm so grateful for is embraced in both YA and romance.
I still have days that I need to know that it's possible, like that's why I read YA romance, I guess.
Yeah, kind of riffing off of that, something that I really love about YA in particular, like I work in pretty much all age groups. Like I have adult work, I have a book that just came out for like 8-year-olds, but something that's really special about YA, I think, is like it's a very unique environment to just be really indulgent, like when it comes to tropes like the ones that Serendipity explores, but also just like it's okay to look at it and be like, okay, maybe this isn't the most realistic ending for the real world, but this isn't what people need like out of a story in this exact moment, and that is completely okay, and I just love that about it.
Yeah. No, I do too. I love that too. I love that there's so much optimism in this age group. Whether it's, a teen starting a revolution and saving the world, or if it's a teen like falling in love and meeting their soulmate and like maybe they're actually going to stay together for like the rest of their lives. And I remember when I was writing the Lunar Chronicles, and over the course of the whole series, we have 4 teen couples. And of course, like statistically, what are the odds that they've all met the one and are going to have happily ever afters? But it was like, that's what I want. And that's what I want as a reader, as a romantic. And I love that in YA, you can do that. You can get away with it and just be indulgent, like Sarah said. You can just like write a really sweet, yet intense and epic romance, and readers are there for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, there's something about YA romance being, I don't know, a bit less intense than adult romance. I love adult romance too. But I think partially sometimes why I read YA romance, and YA romance can be super intense, don't get me wrong. But also I think I don't know, I love like just the super nice, fun like YA romances that can just take you away. And I think that's what I love about romance in general, are the happy endings, right? Like regardless of how intense it all is, that there's going to be that happy ending. And like Anna Marie said, I think it's just something sometimes you just need that in your life. And I know Sarah and Anna Marie, you have other projects that you're working on as well. I don't know if you do as well, Caleb, but I assume all of you do. So why don't you tell us about your upcoming projects, or what you're working on now that's coming out that people can look forward to?
Um, well, I just had a book come out last week. It's called The Greatest Thing, and it is a YA fictionalized memoir about some stuff that happened when I was a sophomore in high school. And it's definitely got a strong romance uh, arc to it because a lot of it is about kind of figuring out that I was bisexual, and some of it is about body image, and some of it is about kind of like the first steps that I took toward managing my mental health when I was first diagnosed with depression and stuff in high school. So yeah, that just came out, and I am working on my next YA book, but I'm not supposed to talk about it very much yet. But it's a YA rom-com graphic novel, and I'm very excited about it.
I love a good graphic novel just in general, but YA rom-com graphic novel I'm super here for.
So I just realized that my next book is coming out in 3 weeks. 2022 is already going really
Nice.
fast for me. So Lore is a portal fantasy about non-binary identity, neurodivergence, alebrijas, and literal glitter and rainbows. I loved writing this book about like the different ways that our brain works and the different ways that our gender identities and gender expressions work. And I wanted to write a portal fantasy for a while. So writing like a world under a lake that's like not staying under the lake, but that's like trying to come on land was something I absolutely loved doing, while also having some kissing in there. Later this year in September, as part of the Remix Classics series, I have Self-Made Boys coming out, which is a Great Gatsby reimagining where both Nick and Gatsby are trans boys, and where I get to have them be together like I always kind of thought that they should have been in the original. Like it's all there. Like this is something, don't get me started on like how much it is there in the original text and in some of the movie adaptations. It's just like it's everywhere. I also get to talk about now like the book I'm writing with mi marido, with my husband, which comes out in 2023. It's my first like full fantasy novel called Venom and Vow, and I love that I get to talk about it here because this is like it's an unwitting enemies to lovers, like because they, thanks to like dual identities, these two characters don't realize that they're actually enemies, even though like one set of their identities is like trying to destroy each other and the other set is like falling in love, and they don't know this.
I love all of this. I completely agree with you about Gatsby. The Gatsby Nick thing is 100% there in the text for sure. So I'm super excited to read that take on it because yeah, I totally agree with that. What about you, Caleb?
So actually, I also have a book coming in the Remix Classics series, and mine is coming out next year, 2023, and I am doing a spin on Romeo and Juliet. But it's about well Romeo is gay, and I get to write a very gay love story. And this was a little bit of a challenge because Romeo and Juliet is not a love story; it is actually a tragedy. And I think it's really important to stress this. It is a tragedy meant for adults. Like it is a warning to adults because it's about two poor kids who are so neglected and manipulated by their families that their lives end in senseless and avoidable tragedy. And I wasn't personally. I'm not really into writing tragedies for queer characters. That's just not my bag. No judgment to queer authors who need to explore their trauma in that way. It's not for me. So going into this, I was like, but the other thing is, the play does have some of William Shakespeare's most beautiful language about love. He says some of the most exquisite things about love in that play, which is, I think, part of the reason why. I mean, and he really has to make it clear that these two kids are very deeply in love, or they are as in love as either of them has ever been up to that point. And I wanted to sort of build on that. I wanted to tell a story about these two queer boys who find each other at a time when they don't have the language to really explain what they are. They don't have the same kind of vocabulary and perspective that we have now. But this is who they are. and they need to navigate that with each other. They need to navigate that with the environment in which they're growing up. There's a lot that I don't know that I can say because it has not, like, the title has not yet been confirmed and it's still being edited. So there are things like, aspects of the plot I probably shouldn't talk about, but it is based on Romeo and Juliet. There's a lot of familiar territory for anybody who's read the play, anybody who knows Shakespeare. I studied Shakespeare in college. I've been to Verona, so it was very fun for me to sort of bring all this to life on the page. Felt very familiar.
I love that too, because I have been in a mood for sure lately, and for like most of my reading life, that like I'm a queer sci-fi fantasy person. That's like my niche and what I love to read, and I love reading like queer joy. And so, books that aren't, like you're saying, like super traumatic or whatever, just like queers in space having space adventures. Like that's my bet. That's what I want. And so I really appreciate that you're doing that, and that you're doing a take on that, because I'm like, yes, like I can't wait to read this book now. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about chemistry, and what makes chemistry between characters, because this is something that really interests me as a reader of various different kinds of romance, because obviously the chemistry is, for me, what makes or breaks it. A lot of the times, if it doesn't feel organic and believable, then it's like it's hard for me to read. So how, as a writer, do you make that chemistry between your characters believable, and what do you think makes that good chemistry happen?
I know for me, one of the things that I'm thinking about right away when I'm starting to create a new love story is trying to pinpoint what are the things that are going to attract these two people to each other. What do they see in each other that they really like, that they respond to, that they connect with, that they think is really sexy, or charming or interesting? What is it? And for me, I found that there's a point you start off, and that's, you're kind of getting to know the characters, but you don't really know them yet. But it's almost like turning, binoculars into focus. They slowly become clearer and clearer. And then all of a sudden there's a moment when I'm writing where a character will do something or say something that I personally just find like so charming and so endearing. And like, that's the moment where it's like, okay, now I'm starting to fall in love. Therefore, I can see why the other character is starting to fall in love. And I have that on, I have that on both sides, from both the main character, but also the love interest, trying to figure out what is it about them that's really drawing each other.
Something that I put a lot of thought into is not just the stuff like it's really easy to write like a couple of really cute, charming characters. Well, not easy, but like those things tend to come more naturally. And I also try to think about things like, okay, what are their flaws? And like, I try not to get too caught up in trying to make them relatable. I try to find some real niche specificities about them that kind of make them fit with another person in a way that they can't fit with anyone else. And this is one of my favorite kind of quotes to come back to, but there's a quote by Hayao Miyazaki, and essentially he says, I looked it up because I was going to paraphrase it terribly, but essentially he says, like, it's not just about like making a romance happen. It's like, I want to see two characters mutually inspire each other to live. And I think that that's a really lovely sentiment. So I think about that a lot.
I have it's not exactly a formula, but there's three things that I need to have in every sort of love story for it to be believable for me. I have, if I'm having two characters who are falling for each other, I need to have a scene where they make each other laugh. I need to have a scene where and they can be separate scenes, but each needs to anticipate the other's needs at least once. And I need to have them be vulnerable with one another. Like there needs to be a scene where they kind of expose their vulnerabilities, each to the other, and see those vulnerabilities be respected and cherished and all that stuff. Because I think that those are key components to a good love story. Certainly, like, I don't know that I could fall in love with somebody who doesn't make me laugh. I don't know that I could fall in love with somebody I can't be vulnerable in front of. And so I sort of approach any love story thinking about those three things, and I figure out what those things are going to be and how those parts will best lock together. And I kind of find that the chemistry sort of builds itself in a way, because I'm also kind of a smart aleck. So all of my characters are going to be kind of bantering and teasing each other a little bit. And as long as they both find that kind of rewarding and fun, then I think the chemistry sort of those blanks fill themselves in some of the time.
I really love that formula, Caleb. I'm going to write that down and use it in the future. Like, speaking of banter too, banter is like one of my favorite things to write. And I think especially like between love interests. And I think like even if they're like sniping against each other, like in a rivals to lovers kind of situation, I think you can get a lot of their like actual thought process through in their body language. Like they could be saying really mean, nasty things, but if their body language is saying something different, I think that's a kind of a right way to build a little bit of chemistry too.
I think something I think about is the idea of the history between characters. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to have known each other for a long time. They can have known each other for a long time, but it's both about any potential history that we have together, common reference points, things that we experience together, things that we can refer to together, and having those things in the moment. And those moments of, oh, that pause of, I'm going to remember this, you're going to remember this. And that sense that this is a significant moment for both of us, whether that's a continuation of a history they've had for a long time or the sort of start of one if they've just met.
Yeah, I agree with everything. Y'all are like giving me things to think about too, because I'm like, And now, like, this is why I like talking to writers, because it's like, ooh, now the next time I read a book, I have like all these things in my head, like, ooh, chemistry. Like, oh yes, look at this. I'll be pointing things out. That's what happens when you talk to writers a lot. But I love it. Okay, so I also want to ask y'all like some fun questions as well about your writing ritual. So I'm just curious as to what your writing rituals are, if you have any like quirks or things that you do, and what is your favorite like writing snack or drink or both? Or do you like not eat or drink while you're writing? Because I know some writers are like that too.
I don't really have any, like, I don't have any specific rituals, because my writing rituals have changed over time. There was, I tried listening to music when I write, but I can't, because then I'm not writing, I'm singing. I listened to opera for a while, because like just like instrumental stuff, but then I started singing along with the instruments. So now I listen to white noise. I guess that's like the one thing that I really need is I have a white noise app, but I've grown kind of dependent on it, because there's something very comforting about it. It kind of like it isolates you with your thoughts. There's fewer distractions, but it's like I listen to this like rain noise, and even when it's raining out, I still have to have my rain noise in. And as far as my favorite beverage, I like tea. I have my Michigan mug here that I am drinking my tea out of.
I like to use ambiance videos on YouTube, like a rain thunderstorm in a autumn cafe kind of. I also have tea with my Zamboni mug. And from like my writing rituals, I tend to have to handwrite everything before copying it over into like a word processor. I can't just type. I have to write first.
That sounds so horrifying to me. I can't. I was. Somebody asked me a question about that. Like, if I write by hand, and I was like, I just like the thought makes my hand cramp up. Like, I it's like
It gets pretty messy after a while, but it's the only way I can do it.
I'm glad that other people use YouTube for ambiance. Uh, Something that happens, especially in winter, is my cat, who is being very clingy right now. It's summer here now, but she's still clingy. But especially in winter, she wants to be like on me all day, which is like very not conducive to a productive work environment. So she really loves those TV for cats videos, but they're actually great background noise because it's white noise, but it's like nature and birds and fluttering things and like scurrying squirrels. So she's entertained all day, and I've got good background noise. And I'm very boring. I don't really do like coffee or tea. I mostly just drink water, but I have to have like ice water with me, or else I have to like fix it because it's just like that's the thing that I need to focus, I guess.
I need to move around a lot. It's partly like disability and spine related. It's also partially like my brain just wants me to move around a lot. I have ADHD, pretty heavy on the H, so I have to like get up around and pace and or like climb things. If my husband sees me like setting up like an obstacle course of like furniture, he'll be like, "Oh, okay, you're trying to work something out in your plot. I understand." So just, and I'm wondering if part of that is just like getting away from the words themselves for a minute. And that's a reason I also really like handwriting too. I just have to make sure that I like type it up really fast because my handwriting is so messy that I will like go back and not know like what I said. I was recently talking to a writer friend who was writing like an entire novel handwritten, wasn't typing it up. And I think that's an absolutely like beautiful process to wait until the end, but it would mean that I go back and think I have no idea what happened in this novel. Absolutely none. So I love handwriting whenever I can. I just have to stay on top of it and make sure that I type it up. So I think it's a beautiful art when you can do it.
what happens when you need to rename a character 4 times? Because I do that with pretty much every book. That's why the find replace function is essential for me.
Maybe like you have your own like dramatis personae at the beginning of the like notebook and you just keep crossing out the name. This, I don't know. This is a good question because I type it up every day. So I'm curious about this too.
Yeah, I also type up everything at the end of the day too, so I don't know.
Okay. So
Yeah, I'm with Caleb. I get my hand hurts just listening to the very thought of it. I couldn't do it. I don't listen to background noise. I feel like you guys have all like such inspiring ideas of like these lovely background noises. I usually am in silence. Sometimes I'll light a candle. I think the only like I don't know, I guess ritual-ish thing that I do is it usually at the start of the day I will plan out my breaks and like, okay, I'm going to write for whatever 30 minutes and then I'm going to get a snack and then I'm going to write for 30 minutes and then I'm going to get up and do some stretches or whatever it is. And so then as I'm writing, not only am I like checking off the writing off of the to-do list, but it's also like, okay, took that break. That one's done. Check that off the list. And I don't know, it feels productive for some reason.
I love
Um,
to-do lists. Yeah, they're amazing for
yeah.
that. I always put like the important, like, don't forget to eat lunch things on there. And then it feels like you've done work. So it's satisfying when you check it off.
Yeah, yeah. And then sometimes like when you know that you need a break, but I don't know, it can be hard to convince yourself to like pause and move away from your desk for a little while. So if I have something to go and do, then I think I feel like, oh yeah, now it's time to go, fold a basket of laundry or whatever. Yeah.
I do a lot of writing in my head, and something like what Anna Marie was saying about physical activity. I find like for me, like running is when I'm a runner, and running is when I do the bulk of my work, because again it's about eliminating distractions. It's like my whole body is occupied in this one activity, like everything from the breathing, like every single part of my body has to be engaged in this one function, except for my brain. And I can just think through plot holes, plot obstacles, anything that I'm struggling with, dialogue, setting, all that stuff.
I have to say, Caleb, I remember when you and I were on book tour together years and years ago, and you brought up running as like this way that you help generate ideas. And the rest of us on the panel were all like, that's so weird. Like, who goes running? And now I don't know if you know this, but I'm running my first half marathon in 2 weeks. And I totally think that you inspired me with that talk way back when.
Well, congratulations. And also, yay, I'm very proud.
If anyone ever sees me running, you better also run in the same direction because something really bad is happening. I am not a runner. I like to bike. Anything that running is, I find, is too hard on my knees. But it's like if you see me running, then it's really bad, and you better just follow me. Just keep going.
When I started playing field hockey, I specifically wanted to be a goalie so I wouldn't have to run. But then my coach made me run in my goalie gear.
Oh my goodness, that's even harder. I have respect for that. I have lots of respect that you could run in your goalie gear like that.
Thank you.
Or that either Marissa, you can run, or Caleb, or anyone who can run. I think it's amazing that you're doing a marathon. Congratulations on that. That's a big thing. Half marathon, but still, it's
half
still
marathon.
Marathon.
I'm super excited about it.
Okay, so let us, or like before we sort of end this portion, what do y'all have any book recommendations for the audience or me? Or what you're reading now?
I must mention Christina Forrest's books because they are just so wonderful in terms of romance, and they're so like richly layered, and there's fantastic banter. So I highly recommend Christina Forrest's novels.
I'm going to recommend. Oh, sorry, you go ahead.
You go for it.
Okay. I recommend Lev Rosen's Camp. I think it's a really great, fun, it's a great love story. It is about toxic masculinity within the gay community, but it's just a really, really charming, fun book.
Something I've been recommending to a lot of people lately is it's called Blue Flag. It's a Japanese manga series about 3 kids in high school, and it's got some really incredible queer representation and sort of like them sort of figuring out their stuff, but also it's just one of the funniest things I have ever read in my life. So I have been recommending it to so many people, and I'm not like sponsored by them or anything, but the Shonen Jump app is really affordable. It's like a $2 subscription or something, and you can read the whole series, and it's wonderful.
For romance in particular, I think one of my recent favorites was Tokyo Ever After by Emiko Jean. It is super romantic and it's just a really, really sweet story. And then I would also say anything by Nicola Yoon is one of my favorites.
For romance, I just recently read Love and Other Disasters by Anita Kelly. A cooking competition, non-binary female romance. And it was extremely relatable in terms of like gender feelings and then also just life feelings. I cried a whole bunch reading that book. And then another one that's not out yet, but is coming out in a few months is Deep in Providence by Riss M. Nielsen. It's kind of like a love story at its core where this group of girls is trying to bring back their friend from the dead. It's deeply atmospheric, and just like the love that those girls share with each other is just so beautiful.
Amazing. I read things all the time that I just throw things at people and hope that they like it. That's pretty much what my job is, I say. Okay, well, good news. The audience definitely kept the story going, so much so that I just had to tell them, okay, we need to wrap this up 2 or 3 more sentences. So we have a story to read at the end. So it's exciting. So that the audience can wrap it up. So, we're getting there. He's so close, but strangely, I don't mind. That's where we're at. So we want to end this with a kiss. So let's do it, audience. And in the meantime, I want to play a fun this or that tropes game with y'all. So I'm going to put 2 tropes on the screen that are somewhat related to each other, or opposites. And I want y'all to pick which one you prefer. And if you feel like elaborating, you can. And if not, just pick one. Either way is fine with me. So first, slow burn or insta love?
Slow burn. Definitely.
Slow burn.
Yeah. Slow burn.
Audience, you can participate too if you like one of these two. I am also a slow burn person.
I'm a fan of both at the same time. When you know that it's there, but they don't acknowledge it for a long time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, next is enemies to lovers or friends to lovers?
Friends to lovers.
I wrote the Friends to Lovers short story for Serendipity, so that's the one I'm going with.
And I love Caleb's Friends to Lovers stories, but I would have to say enemies to lovers.
I love them both equally. It's impossible to choose. It's like having 2 beautiful children. You can't pick one.
Same here. I've written friends to lovers. I'm writing enemies to lovers. So I have to say both.
Yeah, I feel like if I have to pick, I like friends to lovers, just because of that, what I was saying earlier, especially if it's like queer friend. Like I love Caleb's story because of that, because it was like, yay, queer friends to lovers. I love this. Or like, holiday movies. I watched that Single All the Way. Oh my God. Like that is just like, yes. So right now I'll say friends to lovers, but ask me tomorrow and it might be different. Okay, third, love triangle or soulmates?
Love triangle, but make it polyamorous.
Yes, that is always my answer too.
Yeah.
That's the best. We need more of those, I think.
Soulmates for me, the one and only.
I have to say, like, as a queer author of predominantly queer stories, the love triangle does present a lot of possibilities that have not actually been explored very often. So that might be the one that I would go with.
I mean, you could have soulmates in a love triangle, 3 soulmates. So I'm sure there will be at some point one where I will pick one or the other. I'm going to try to do that.
I feel like for all of these, you could definitely do both at the same time, for sure.
Frenemies to lovers.
Oh, yes. See? Okay, fake relationship or unrequited love?
Fake relationship. Unrequited love is also very good, but just like, it's so good.
Yeah, these are both great, but I agree. Fake relationship that's for me.
Yeah, unrequited love just seems so painful. So fake relationship.
I really, really love both of these. Can I say that unrequited love that turns out to not be unrequited?
Like mutual pining?
Yeah, but like
like
they
fake
would
relationship.
never see me that way. They would never think of me that way. I love that.
I love
That's
when
exactly
it's a fake
what I was
relationship and they're
thinking.
both falling for each other and they're both like, oh, but I love the other person, but they don't love me back.
Exactly.
It's a very good combination.
Pulls at those
Exactly.
heartstrings.
I love that as a reader and as a writer, where like the reader can see it so much more clearly, and you as the reader can just be like, "What? But okay, you'll figure it out eventually."
Okay, I have one more. secret admirer, or grand romantic gesture? We have both of these in Serendipity.
Me too.
Well, I wrote the secret admirer one, so that's the boat I'm in.
I'm in that same boat with you.
I think I would also be secret admirer. Grand romantic gestures make me nervous. Like the people that propose at baseball games on the screen, I'm just like, so risky.
Yeah.
Both of these actually make me a little nervous. I did like the way you handled the secret admirer, though, Sarah.
Me too.
Thank you.
Marissa, I was just thinking of exactly that. How, like, if someone proposed to me at like a baseball game, I'd be like, you clearly don't know enough about me. I'm sorry, no.
You missed that chance.
Okay. Well, are we ready for this story? Because this story, y'all, it is taken on a life of its own. And so there is also the audience has asked if the authors can write the last sentence with the kissing, because nobody wants to actually write in the audience the kissing. Everybody's like, I don't want to be the one to write it. So let me see if I can share it, because I've been typing it in. Let's see.
No pressure, right, everybody?
So here it is. Okay, wait, can y'all see that? Is it too small? Let's see if I can like make it a little bit bigger. Here we go. So that it's easier. So do y'all want to take turns reading it? Do you want me to just read it since it's on my screen? How do y'all want to do this?
I vote we take turns.
Oh, I can't read out loud. I trip over words so bad.
Yeah, me too.
I can't, but
Maybe
I'm
the
not wearing,
eloquent people can read it.
I'm not wearing glasses, so I'm gonna have to get really close to the screen.
So much excuses, everybody. It's okay. Me and Anna Marie, we've got this.
Yeah, go ahead, Anna Marie. If you want to read, if you want to
Oh,
start.
I was gonna say, dyslexia means that you might get a completely different story than what is actually written. So I will bow out of reading. I mean, that
Okay.
my reading could mean there's accidental kissing because I've read it wrong. But other than that, I think probably I should bow out.
Okay, I will read it then.
Would you like me to read it? I'm happy
Yes,
to read it.
that
I
would
feel
be
like
amazing.
you have been really
Yes,
carrying
go,
the weight
Marissa.
of
I would love
this
for you to read it.
Okay, all right. So let me read it. All right.
Can you see it good enough?
I can, yeah. All right. I'm so excited to see what everybody wrote. It was a perfect afternoon in my favorite bookstore until my least favorite person walked in. He looked at me and immediately got a dark scowl on his face. Whoever thought Mr. Darcy was attractive for being grumpy was entirely wrong. Imagine if a dark cloud had biceps, and that's the vibe. The fact that he wore all black and eyeliner just added to it. If it weren't for the scent of freshly pressed literature in the air, I'm not sure I'd have lingered for even a moment longer. He disappeared behind a large shelf positioned between us in the store, and I felt an instant rush of relief. Though hiding safely behind the horror shelf, I could detect some confusion in his sweeping gaze. "Mister, can I help you?" I called after him. I straightened my name tag and, with a confidence I didn't feel, I strode toward him. "Yes, you can," he said with a warm smile I didn't know he possessed. Despite his assured words, sweat glistened on his forehead. He looked up at me, realizing that I had noticed, and laughed awkwardly. "I guess I'm feeling kind of hot. Might be at least Fahrenheit 451 in here." That was good. Who knew he had the same corny sense of humor I did? Before I knew it, I began to blush a bit. "Okay," I said, unable to make full eye contact. "Do you need a recommendation?" I couldn't help but let out a nervous giggle. He immediately noticed and looked down at the ground and then back up at me. He awkwardly laughed, and then silence fell between us, waiting for either of our next gestures. "In fact, I do. My favorite genre is YA." "YA? That's surprising." "Yep. Any favorite author or books I should check out?" I looked him up and down. then met his dark eyes. My go-to author is Marissa Meyer. You seem like a Renegades person. He scowled. Of course I know Renegades. That's so basic. Sorry, I would have recommended Jane Austen, but I guess my book rec sensibility isn't enough for you. I rolled my eyes. Could he leave, please? Can you recommend anything more obscure? He says in a tone I'm not sure whether is insulting or genuinely curious, with a hint of dry cynicism. If you're so good at book recommendations, why don't you work here? I asked jokingly. His eyebrows quirked. How about I recommend you? The way his hair fell across his eyes made me sweat. My heart pounded in my chest, the same way my nerves tingle at an overdue library book find. Recommend me for what? I asked as I felt my stomach drop. I let out another nervous giggle. He leaned in. I thought I wouldn't enjoy this person, I said to myself shyly. What is he doing? Maybe he has something to tell me? I leaned in closer, curiously, and I closed the distance, hoping I wasn't reading him wrong. I could feel his breath on my cheek. He's so close, but strangely, I don't mind. I feel the heat of his lips pressing against my cheek softly. I immediately freeze, unsure of whether to melt or shout. I'm sorry, was this too soon? Yes, I respond through a labored haze. He steps back shyly. My name is Darcy. I don't make a habit of doing this. Maybe your pride got ahead of you. Well, you definitely feel prejudiced against me.
So that is what the audience came up with there. And so if you want to like give us like a last sentence or two to finish us off with a kiss, that would be fun. Maybe your pride got ahead of you. Well, you definitely feel prejudiced against me. This is where we are, but they're close. They're leaning in.
And then, with a rush of unexpected confidence, I grabbed him by the sides, or I grabbed my, how would you put that? I wrapped my arms around his neck.
Got it. Who's good at kissing? All of you are good at kissing. Come on.
Kissing is hard to write.
Kissing is hard.
It's a lot of staring into the air thinking, okay, how have I not said this before?
How about I pressed my lips to his and the music in the bookstore cafe swelled.
The end. I feel like that's good, right? Like I press my lips to his. Well, how does he react? And maybe that will be the end. How he reacts. I press my lips to his. The music swells.
This is feeling very RPG. How does he react?
I know it is very RPG now. This is a romance RPG game.
Tabletop romance.
Tabletop romance. Okay, that's like $1 million idea. Just saying. Well, if you don't, that's fine. This is like a very no pressure thing. But I do
would say, like, if I were actually writing it, I feel like this is the moment where he would pull back and say something like really witty, because there's been so many great literary puns going on. But you can't, I don't know. Clearly the people in the audience were able to make that up on the spot, but I'd have to sit here for like, okay, what's the funny thing he's going to say? And it would take me 2 days to come up with it.
I was definitely thinking, would that we could all draft this quickly. I'm really impressed.
I
do love that, like,
the audience did such a good job, right? Like, I'm so proud of the audience, y'all. This is amazing. I love y'all's quips and puns and everything that got put in here. And someone commented that this has some serious anime vibes, which I totally agree with. It does have some serious anime vibes in there. So thank you everyone for playing this game with us. If anyone in the audience, I don't know, I do have this in a Google Doc. So if any of the authors like want this silly story, I can send it to you. But this was super fun. I really appreciate the audience participation in this. So yay, thank you y'all. Great job. And I'm a sucker for puns, so I appreciate all of the puns in this story as well. And I think that is pretty much all we have. I thank you all for doing this with us tonight, the shenanigans, and for playing our games. I'm really happy that y'all were willing to go along with this. So thank you so much. I had a lot of fun. I hope y'all did. The audience seemed to have a lot of fun. There was a lot of engagement in the comments as well. So I super, super appreciate all of you being here. And of course, if you have not bought a book yet, you can hit that buy a book button there. And you can buy any of these books or pre-order ones that aren't out yet as well. That is all things you can do with Tubby and Koo's Mid-City Bookshop, which I guess I should mention my bookstore. Although if you're here, hopefully, you know what bookstore this is for. But just in case, Tubby and Koo's Mid-City Bookshop in New Orleans. And go ahead and click that and buy books. And thank you for coming. I'm super proud of everyone in the audience. And thank you to all of the authors for really just doing this event with us. I'm greatly appreciative. Thank y'all so much. And everyone have a really great evening. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.